Welcome to Kansas Ag Report. I'm Ken Rogers. On this week's show, our special guest will be Dr. Richard Linton, the president of Kansas State University. He's spending part of his summer all over Kansas, and we caught up with him in Smith County. Lots going on campus as well throughout 105 counties in the state. We'll also have features from Kansas Corn, Kansas Wheat, and the Kansas Farm Bureau, along with weekly update from the Kansas Livestock Association and market information from Pinon. Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Kansas Farm Bureau, a grassroots ag organization representing the state's farm and ranch families since 1919, kfb.org. And the Kansas Wheat Commission, lending in the adoption of profitable innovations from wheat, online at kswheat.com. In agriculture news, celebrating the 4th of July with a cookout will cost significantly more than 2 years ago, although prices have fallen slightly from the record highs we saw in 2022. Families will pay $67.73 to host an Independence Day cookout with 10 family members or friends. That's based on the 23 American Farm Bureau Federation Market Basket Survey. That grocery bill is down 3% from last year, still approximately 14% higher than prices just 2 years ago. Last year, it set a record high since the Farm Bureau began the survey in 2013. 2023 comes in as the second highest cost. The cookout includes favorites like cheeseburgers, chicken breast, pork chops, homemade potato salad, strawberries, and ice cream, among other products. The Market Basket Survey shows a year-to-year increase in the cost of hamburger buns, beef, and potato salad, but there is a drop in the cost of chicken breast, lemonade, and cookies. Although historically high, the cost of the cookout breaks down to less than $7 a person. And lawmakers in the U.S. Senate this week reintroduced the Reliable Rail Service Act. This legislation seeks to help address the unreliable service and high cost of rail shipping for American businesses. It's supported by members of the agriculture industry, labor organizations, energy producers, and manufacturers. The bill ensures that the largest freight railroads provide American businesses reliable service at a reliable rate. Rail shippers, including farmers, continue to face poor service, significant service disruptions, and sky-high prices, they call them. They're impacting communities and consumers, all while the nation's largest railroad profits are at record highs. So one of the sponsors is Kansas Senator Dr. Roger Marshall. He says service failures hurt the shippers who use the rail to deliver their products to key export facilities. The bill establishes specific criteria for the Surface Transportation Board to consider when evaluating whether carriers are meeting their common carrier obligation to give shippers much-needed certainty that is currently lacking. Dr. Richard Linton from K-State will join us in just a moment. The Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by Kansas Grain Sorghum, growers working together. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. grassandgrain.com. And our special guest is Dr. Richard Linton, who is the president of Kansas State University. In the summertime, he goes out and about. We were able to catch up with him in Smith County. So, Mr. President, thanks for being here.
Certainly happy to be here today, and it's a hot day, 103 degrees today.
Well, you're getting that full experience of a good hot Kansas summer. I think it was maybe a little warm last year as well, but
it seems like we do this every year where it gets to be 100 degrees, but it's been a great couple of days so far.
Well, we do want to talk about the opportunity, what you've done through this past year, after the first year, kind of year and a half now on. You've seen a lot of Kansans, you've talked to a lot of stakeholders, and today is one of those as well, and you've got a few more planned. What are you hearing?
So I think we're hearing that, first of all, I think people are very thankful that we are being the land-grant university. And me and my team are reaching out all over the state to be able to listen, celebrate the partnerships that we have, and talk about new partnerships and new relationships that we can grow and build to be able to be the best land-grant university that we can. I think people are revitalized after COVID-19, and I think they're resilient to be able to want to move forward and grow, and there's a lot of momentum at Kansas State University.
Well, let's talk about that momentum. When you came, one of our first conversations, you told me, you said, Ken, we're going to do great things. We're going to raise a lot of money. And I know you looked at me and you go, what, don't you believe me? And sure enough, you did, raising over $75 million to go back primarily within the College of Agriculture right now.
Yes, so our biggest progress relative to philanthropy is a project called the Ag Innovation Project. And this is a 9-building project where 3 buildings will come down because they cannot be modernized. We'll have 4 new facilities, and we'll have 2 buildings that can be completely modernized, to be able to meet the needs of the next generation agriculture. To date, we've raised all but $65 million of a $210 million goal, so about $145 million that we've raised just over the last year. There's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm. What's going to happen here is Schellenberger and Feed Tech. Those buildings will come down. Again, we're supporting the #1 grain and milling and baking department in the world, and we need to have facilities to be able to support that research and moving forward. Those 2 buildings are coming down. The livestock arena that's in between Call Hall and Weber Hall also comes down. In its place, Call Hall and Weber Hall will be renovated, and then we'll have 2 new agronomy research buildings that'll be over at the agronomy research farm, and a brand new building that'll be the new Schellenberger, but it'll be different. It'll support the integration of agronomy, food science, animal science, grain and milling sciences all together in an interdisciplinary way. And then, of course, if we're taking down a livestock arena, we've got to build a new livestock arena, and we'll do that up by the stocker unit over there by the NBAF facility. So a lot of great things happening in a very short period of time to support the #1 economic engine in the state, which is agriculture and food systems.
Talk about, we were all together when kind of that formal dedication of the National Ag Biodefense Facility there in Manhattan will soon be very much up and operational, but kind of that last big step has been taken. Talk about that relationship of how that bolsters K-State, in a sense, almost cachet around the world.
Well, let's first take a look at what we have. It's a $1.3 billion facility for biosafety level 4 research and development to be done on animal disease and animal diagnostics. It's the only place in the United States that's capable of doing that work. It's only one of 5 facilities in the world. We've got a great partnership with USDA ARS, who will be leading this effort with NBAF. Think about the partnership and moving forward. Think about industry that's going to come to Manhattan, Kansas, to be able to interact and do research with both Kansas State University and USDA ARS. It's a tremendous opportunity. We're so glad that we cut the ribbon a couple weeks ago. It'll take USDA ARS about 2.5 to 3 years to be fully operational, but already we're seeing we're seeing incredible talent that wants to come to Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas, and we're also seeing industry that wants to be a part of this. So expect in the next couple of years lots of private-public partnerships with industry to be able to help move the animal industry forward.
We're talking with Dr. Richard Linton, the president of Kansas State University. We'll take a quick break, be back with more in just a moment.
Kansas Ag Report brought to you in part by the Kansas Livestock Association, supporting members' business interests and meeting consumer demands. KLA.org. Oldie Seed Farms, carrying soil-specific seed. Find them on the web at oldieseed.com. That's OHLDE seed.com. And Kansas Corn, building the future at kansascorn.com.
And our guest is Dr. Richard Linton, the president of Kansas State University. He's out the road this summer. We caught up with him in the Smith Center, in basically the center of the continuous U.S. I don't know if you made it there or not to see that. I know you've been a lot of different places, but you have now reached the middle of the country.
We are headed to the middle of the country. We're going to put a foot on the ground tomorrow to be able to say that we've actually stepped on the exact central of the United States. I can't wait.
All right, let's talk about a couple things, other exciting things going on. One, K-State 105. The legislature got that finally done to where y'all can move forward. You hit the ground running with that.
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to thank you personally for the work that you did to be able to help support K-State 105, and certainly thank the state of Kansas for supporting the effort. It's a $5 million investment over the next 2 years to be able to get us off the ground and running, and it's all about economic development. It's all about developing partnerships with economic development, developing partnerships with community colleges, any entity that will help us develop regional opportunities across all of our 105 counties. And if you think about it, if we can build a better economy, if we can create opportunities for jobs, we'll keep Kansans in Kansas, and we'll be able to attract other students and other industries to want to come to the state of Kansas. It's all about making our state better from an economic perspective.
Before too long, students will be back on campus. I know we're all kind of focused on that football season, but also let's talk about enrollment. Let's talk about just the opportunities now with all these things we previously talked about. Why a student should come to K-State?
Well, let me start with the why the student should come to K-State, and then I'm going to give you some information about the data that we're looking at. Kids could come to K-State because, frankly, we're going to take care of your son or daughter. It is the #1 place in the country for best quality of life for a student. The student experience at Kansas State University is like no other experience in the country for any land-grant university. And I think we got to do a better job of communicating that incredible experience. You know, we get some great data relative to student enrollment. I think you know that we've been in a downward slope over the last 8 or 9 years. We're down 21%, down 5,100 students. Last year, we started to turn that boat. We're up 1.5% for undergraduate and graduate students. And last year, because of better technology, because of better communications, and $96 million that we raised to be able to lessen student debt, this year we're up 26% in out-of-state applications. Overall, we're up about 14% in applications. We're expecting 400 to 500 students more this year and expecting another 1,000 more above that in the next year. So we're turning that boat. I think student enrollment is turning around. We're doing a really good job of recruiting and messaging, again, the incredible experience that you can get at Kansas State University.
Well, it seems like, you know, the projects you have going on now will really transform. And that's the other thing I want to kind of end up on. You preach that. I'm a believer to really can make K-State that next generation of land grant, because I think that's sorely needed. I think folks in Kansas are interested and excited about what that might be.
When you think about a next generation land grant, it is our strategic plan. We will launch it on September the 8th of this year. The whole idea is to be able to be a land grant university, support research, teaching, and outreach and engagement. But think about developing a land grant university as if you were developing it from scratch. So the student of yesterday was a student that came to the physical campus for 9 months a year and got a 4-year degree after 5 or 6 years. The student of tomorrow might be involved in distance education, might be involved in a partnership with a community college or a technical college. The student of tomorrow might be a non-degree seeking student. As an example, you could have a 45-year-old that's working at Cargill that wants to elevate their career in data analytics. Well, 20 years ago when they were in school, data analytics didn't exist. How can we help them? The purpose and goal of a land-grant university isn't necessarily to provide degrees. It's to provide education to the whole of the state. So instead of us thinking about 20,000 students, we're thinking about 2.8 million potential students that we can educate in some way that will help to enhance the quality of their life.
Well, Dr. Linton, again, great to have you in Western Kansas and out and about amongst the state and talking with stakeholders, and we look forward to doing this again soon.
Sounds good, and as I say always, go Cats!
Dr. Richard Linton, the president of Kansas State, has joined us. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
Hi, this is Bill Johnston with Kansas Corn. We've provided you with a lesson about the life cycle of an insect and the impact that insects have on our daily lives. Today, I'm going to walk around on my property and see if I can find some examples of different kinds of insects. After that, I'm going to take on a bigger challenge and see if I can find the 4 stages of an insect's life: the egg, larva, pupa, an adult, and I challenge you to do the same thing. Let's see if there's anything under this rock. And there's a beetle. And there's a fly on the side of my truck. These chickens are looking for insects too. I was able to catch this bee. Well, it didn't take me long to find 3 insects. So now I'm going to go try and find those 4 stages of the insect's life. We've kind of hit a jackpot here. I dug up a small colony of ants, and we actually found all 4 stages. If you look in the center top portion of the paperclip, you'll see a small white spot. That is an ant egg. Right above that, you'll see 2 ants carrying pupa around, and below the paperclip is an ant carrying a larva. And then, of course, we've got the adult ants themselves. Well, we got lucky and were able to find some examples of insects pretty quickly. We had to look quite a while before we stumbled onto that colony of ants where we were able to find all 4 stages. It might take a little work, but I'm sure that you can find all 4 stages also. So, good luck.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
The 2023 Wheat Quality Council's Hard Winter Wheat Tour across Kansas wrapped up on May 18th. During the 3 days of wheat scouting, tour participants traveled 6 routes from Manhattan to Colby to Wichita and back to Manhattan. This year's tour hosted 106 people, some of whom this was their first experience in a wheat field. The tour had people from 22 U.S. states plus Mexico, Canada, and Colombia in 27 vehicles while traveling across the state. The 3-day average calculated yield for the fields that will be harvested was 30 bushels an acre. While an estimated 1.8 million acres of wheat were planted in the fall, the Kansas wheat crop has suffered from a multi-year drought, which has robbed the state's yield potential and resulted in many abandoned fields. The official tour projection for the total production of wheat to be harvested in Kansas is 178 million bushels, indicating that tour participants thought abandonment might be quite a bit higher than normal at 26.75%. The production number is average of estimated predictions from tour participants who gathered information from 652 fields from across the state. Based on May 1st conditions, NASS predicted the crop to be higher at 191 million bushels, with a yield of 29 bushel an acre. The abandonment at 18.5%. For fields that have not yet headed out, scouts were able to use an early season formula model to calculate the potential yield of fields. The model uses an average head weight based on 2013 to 2022 Kansas wheat objective yield data. For the fields that have already headed, attendees were able to use a late season formula to calculate yields based on number of wheat heads, number of spikelets, and kernels per spikelet. These formulas are provided by USDA's National Agricultural Statistics Service. The formulas do not take into consideration variables such as weed pressure, disease, and pests. Tour scouts didn't see much disease pressure this year with the drought conditions. These fields are still 3 to 6 weeks from harvest, so a lot can happen during that time to affect final yields and production. The tour is sponsored by the Wheat Quality Council, which is a coordinated effort by breeders, producers, and processors to improve wheat and flour quality. The primary goals of the tour are to make connections within the wheat industry, allow participants to meet wheat farmers, and to see the growing crop and to highlight the agriculture industry.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Bob Hazelwood from Shawnee County is a recipient of Kansas Farm Bureau's Distinguished Service to Agriculture Award for 2021. For 45 years, Bob has committed countless hours to serving the agriculture industry. As a farmer first, he raises soybeans, corn, and wheat on his family farm in Barryton. In 2005, he was elected to the Kansas Soybean Commission, and from there has served in multiple officer positions and as a representative to a host of organizations, including the World Initiative for Soy and Human Health, U.S. Soybean Export Council, and the National Biodiesel Board. His focus has been on bringing value back to Kansas soybean farmers through investments in agronomic research, developing uses for soybeans, and building demand for soy. In 2006, he was appointed to serve Kansas farmers as a director on the United Soybean Board, where he served through 2016. As a director, he strengthened the soybean checkoff's work nationally and internationally, while working to develop new markets and expand demand for soybeans. He served as chairman of the organization from 2014 to 2015. Bob has done tremendous work on behalf of growers promoting soybeans across the world. Throughout his service, he has traveled to 22 countries to grow demand for soybeans. His legacy of service has also impacted Kansas Farm Bureau, where he has served on the Membership Committee, Resolutions Committee, Vote FBF, and the Oil Seeds Committee. Giving back and serving as a voice of the industry has been Bob's legacy for more than 40 years. Thank you, Bob, for your commitment to the agricultural community.
Rural families are built different, but life isn't always easy.
Mental health would be kind of like bankruptcy. If you don't take care of it first, it could spiral downward. There is help out there, and to reach out and get help before it's too late.
There is help. Talk to a family member or your doctor. Text or call 988. Above all, don't suffer in silence. For more resources, visit kfb.org/Rural Minds Matter.
Imagine turning soybean oil, used cooking oils, and waste animal fats into fuel so amazing it drives U.S. jobs and our economy forward. Learn more about biodiesel at americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
U.S. Senator Roger Marshall joined 9 other senators recently in introducing legislation that would prohibit states and local units of government from interfering with the production of agricultural products in other states. Specifically, the Ending Agricultural Trade Suppression Act would prevent states like California from regulating farmers and ranchers nationwide. According to Senator Marshall, this is a matter of states' rights. He said if California wants to regulate agriculture in its own state, that's fine, but its rules should not apply to Kansas, whose legislature never approved of these regulations. The act was introduced in response to the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling against the National Pork Producers Council in their challenge of California's Proposition 12. The law mandates a variety of animal production standards and would ban the in-state sale of pork and veal not produced in accordance with California law, even if the hogs and calves were raised in other states. In the lawsuit, NPPC argued the California measure violates the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution by regulating commerce outside the state's borders. Several other states also have adopted or contemplated laws that would impact agricultural production outside their state.
Many seed companies claim to offer the latest genetics, but how many have tested those genetics in soils just like yours? The Oldie Seed Know to Grow research program has fully tested the latest seed genetics in soils that are right in your neighborhood. The Oldie Seed Know to Grow program can recommend the best performing hybrids from technologies like Enlist, Extend, and Liberty Link that will optimize the yield and profit of every acre on your farm. Contact Oldie Seed today.
Good morning, this is Jake McCall with Pinon Ag. We are steadily making our way into the summer growing season after a very rapid spring planting pace. Now that the majority of the crop is in the ground, all eyes will be on the weather forecast to determine this year's crop, and the market will be watching. So far, there's still a lot of ground with less moisture than would be ideal, especially in western Kansas and Nebraska. However, some relief has been found in scattered showers over the past few weeks that will attempt to replenish soil moisture where it can. Grains rallied across the board last week going into Memorial Day weekend, but from there it will largely be a weather market as we see that the U.S. is continually priced over the world market, a phenomenon demonstrated continually by poor export numbers. Cattle markets continue to march higher as we've seen an unseasonably strong cash trade for fat steers. With a large spread between northern and southern cash prices, it is likely that cattle will be trucked from south to north to fill this opportunity. In other spaces, all markets are still watching to see how the debt ceiling will be handled in D.C. While it is more than likely a deal will be reached, it is always a subject that unnerves Wall Street investors. If you have any questions or would like to discuss your marketing strategies, feel free to reach out at 888-452-8751. I'm Jake McCall with Pinon Ag, and I hope you have a safe and productive day.
What does a brighter, more sustainable future look like in our cities and towns, and how do we get there? When New York needed an alternative fuel source to reduce carbon emissions, the city found what it needed in biodiesel made from U.S. soybean oil.
Well, that's our show this week. Be social with us online, KansasAgReport.net, or our social media channels. This weekend is a time to celebrate and reflect on our independence and the freedom that so many fought for. Have a great Independence Day, 4th of July, and be safe. I'm Ken Rogers. We'll talk with you next week on the Kansas Ag Report.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.